try to work it all out. Two middle-aged guys try to work it all out. Two middle-aged guys try to work it all out. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Two Middle-Aged Guys Trying to Work It All Out. I'm Chris, and with me, as always, is my good friend.
My hacker name it's also Dave. Oh, shoot. I picked a bad hacker name.
Listen, I've heard worse hacker names, okay?
Yeah.
So Dave's not terrible. It's okay.
I was going to make it my social security number, but I thought better of it. I thought, man, maybe that's...
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, no. Mine is my full name, date of birth, and high school that I went to.
Yes, mother's maiden name,
yes.
First pet, first street you lived on, just all those things. Just get it right into the string.
Yeah. Hacker name, though, Dave. Why would you be interested in having a hacker name? I can't imagine.
Well, no one can be told what their hacker name is. You have to be shown. I don't think that, maybe no one can be told what the podcast is. You have to be shown what the podcast is by listening to it. That doesn't work either. But we're going to talk today about, it has nothing to do with hacking. It's funny that they're all hackers in the Matrix, but it really doesn't have anything to do with hacking. Sitting and looking at a screen that flickers green letters isn't hacking. We're going to be talking about the Matrix.
But I would take umbrage with the fact that there's no hacking in the Matrix. There absolutely is hacking in the Matrix. Because that's like, when he's like calling up and asking for guns, that's hacking. I don't think that's built into the Matrix.
Yeah. Isn't that what they call that? Jacking in? Isn't that what they call it? Or we're going to...
No, I don't think so.
Oh, I thought...
Because jacking in is getting in the chair and having the thing...
He's getting in the chair. You're right.
Yeah. So getting the room full of guns, or being like taught how to fly a helicopter in a heartbeat.
Yes.
Like, I think that's their version of hacking. In addition to the Matrix, I want to set this up for the listeners. We are also going to be talking about the Matrix Reloaded and the Matrix Revolutions and the Matrix Resurrections.
Yes.
So it's more than just one.
We're not going to talk about the Animatrix, are we?
I wasn't planning to, but if you want to bring it up,
I could never make it through there. I will also be talking about another series of movies that, while preparing for this, I got down a rabbit hole on another series of films that you could say, I believe, inspired the Matrix. I think the Wachowskis have said as much. And that is, I would like to, so I won't bury the lead, the Tron movies. Getting into the Matrix, and Disney keeps trying to get me to watch Tron Ares. Buy Tron Ares, please. They've almost sold 10 digital copies, and they're really trying to get to the double digits. So I was like, well, I'm not going to watch that. But I did go back and watch the parts of the original Tron and the entire 2010 Tron Reloaded. No, it's not called Tron Reloaded. All of a sudden, I don't remember.
What is that called?
Tron 2. Well,
yes, exactly.
I just watched it. I watched the entire movie, and I can't remember the name. That tells you the kind of impact it had. Tron Legacy. Yes.
Tron Legacy, is that what it is? All
yes.
Right. Can you have a legacy after just two movies? That seems...
No. I was going to make this entire conversation about Tron, but I did get into that. It's weird how it led me to that, but we're talking about the Matrix. Why are we talking about it? What we want to learn something from it. I mean, these were big movies, a big trilogy. And that, it took some time off and came back with the fourth one. Culturally was a very big deal in the late 90s and early 2000s. And then it seemed like we stopped talking about it. And then when, Resurrection came out, I almost called it Reloaded, then Revolutions. But when Resurrection came out, it felt like we didn't talk about that either. So maybe we could revisit that and see, how important were these films? What did we learn from them? And what's their legacy?
I have some very strong opinions about those things that you have presented and what we're going to try to work out today. So I'm excited to get into it. I don't even care if you prepared trivia or a game or whatever. I'm vetoing the whole thing, and I'm saying
No, we're going right in.
Let's go ahead and let's take the red
We're
pill.
hacking in
Let's
to this episode. We're going to bypass the game, hack around that.
We're
going to log in.
/no equals run.
Run.
I did.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you gotta type in run. I'm gonna go over to pizza.net and order pizza real quick, but when I'm back, then we'll talk about the Matrix.
What are you trying to tell me? That I can dodge bullets?
No, Neo. I'm trying to tell you that when you're ready, you won't have to.
When did you see The Matrix? I know we both saw it in the theaters. Did you see it opening night?
I did not see it opening night because The Matrix is one of those really, really rare films that I did not know it was coming. Like, I had not seen a trailer for it. I had not read a Fangoria article about it, or whatever magazine was out at the time. I knew nothing about it. I literally opened the newspaper. This is how old I am. Once, and saw the poster and it looked. They're standing there in their long coats, and Keanu Reeves is in it, and it's like The Matrix, and I'm like, oh, that sounds like science fiction. I love science fiction, so I went in completely blind. And It was an amazing experience. And I walked out of the theater completely blown away. And I went back the next day and watched it again because I was just so absolutely stunned by this film. It's the only time in my life where I have lived through a shift in pop culture. And, so much of the first Matrix movie became part of our vocabulary instantaneously. Like, what is the Matrix, or take the blue pill or the red pill,
bullet time,
or all exactly. All of these things were just so much ingrained into society. In a
first time a white rabbit has ever been mentioned in fiction. It had no deeper meaning.
I did not know that. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's a fact.
It was an amazing moment. And it's one of those things that I always remember, but it was like the closest I've ever come to touching zeitgeist was the first Matrix film.
Wow. I think something else, you talked about going in, not knowing anything. I think there's another reason for that. Obviously, the internet, I also looked it up in the paper to get the showtimes. I saw it. I was in Tulsa on my first ever work trip when it came out. And I saw it in a midnight movie on opening night. But something else was going on that summer of '99, and that was the Phantom Menace, that had sucked all of the oxygen out of the movie-going world. All of the talking and preparing was for the Phantom Menace, and the Matrix just kind of snuck in. That was '99, right? Yeah, I've got my dates right. That was the same summer as the Phantom Menace.
It was the same summer, but I think it predated the Phantom Menace, didn't it?
It did, but no one was looking for the Matrix.
But all of the marketing, right? Everything that was building up to.
Yes. Was all, and everything we were looking forward to was all Phantom Menace. It was all Star Wars. We were buying Star Wars toys. We were, all that stuff, right? So, this, all of a sudden, this blip on the radar, that's the Matrix. Like, what is this? I don't know what this is. Well, I'm waiting on the Phantom Menace to come out. I'll go see this. And it was obviously it was a big surprise. No one knew what they were getting, and even after seeing it for the first time, I don't think people really knew what they had gotten. Right? I think it took a little bit of time to digest because it was so much different than any of the science fiction. It was more the thinking, almost even you could say Blade Runner-esque in that it had depth. It was beautiful. It was bringing new concepts, and you and I didn't get to experience Blade Runner in the theaters because we were 4. So
should not have been an excuse, but anyway,
we should have gotten on the bus, got ourselves there. We could have stacked on top of each other, right, with like a trench coat. Like, hey, that baby is standing on another baby.
Trench coat,
it looks like an adult.
It would have worked.
It could have worked. It could have worked. Might have been confused. Why is that guy poking the other guy's eyes out, but it would have probably been fine. But yeah, we were not expecting it because all the eyes were on the Phantom Menace, right? And so this magic trick of the Matrix, a sleight of hand, it came out, and we all got a really big surprise.
Yeah. So what was your impression of the movie after your first viewing?
I saw it in the theaters twice. I saw it, I think, within 2 weeks of each other. My first was, well, I didn't know what I was getting, and it was a lot more talky than I expected, which was fine. But I was a little confused. Like, wow, well, this is not. This is trying to be something bigger than most of your average science fiction films. And so I was a little bit perplexed by it. I think it took the second viewing for me to have understood what I was watching and why it was important. And I think that I certainly enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much that I was waiting for the next film. But I think that I was more excited about what they had set up with this universe and what was going to come than I was about what we had gotten. I mean, Matrix is a little bit, it's prologue for a bigger story, I think. And so I was more on fire for what was going to come after than I was for the first one, if that makes sense.
I comprehend what you're saying. I'm a little surprised to hear it though, because yes. I thought the first Matrix is, it's a beautiful capsule, and it unless I'm remembering incorrectly, like it was not a given that there was going to be a sequel immediately. And no. This was back in the days where not everything was a trilogy, right? Like you couldn't bank on that.
And not everything had lore.
Exactly, which we're going to tackle in detail at some point. But anyway, so you see the first Matrix, and it's kind of like the first Star Wars in that sense, where it is an encapsulated story that hints at this larger universe, and it ends in a way where you're like, wow, I would love for them to continue this, but I don't know that that's the plan. This might just be an amazing one movie experience. I don't remember when I heard that, yes, there were going to be Matrix sequels. This was also around the time of Fellowship of the Ring, which was getting a lot of publicity for, we're filming them all simultaneously.
Yes.
Which was kind of a new thing in Hollywood, that's not something that happened a lot. So then the idea that the Matrix sequels would follow that pattern, that they were going to film Matrix 2, Matrix 3 back to back, cut them in, and it would be a very quick turnaround and release for those. So all of this was kind of new, like that wasn't something that happened often or even at all at that point. It's not that I wasn't excited for what was to come. It was that I was enjoying what we had so very much. And so I loved The Matrix, saw it multiple times in theaters. When the DVD hit, and it was one of the best made and best mastered DVDs at the time. It was so good. And the only downside I could fault it for was it came in that stupid cardboard Warner Brothers case instead of a proper plastic DVD case. I hated that. But all the special features, the audio quality, the picture quality, like in my mind, there was like, it's never going to get better than this. Like, this is amazing.
If I remember right, it was one of the early dual layers, and it had branching logic and some other more advanced features that even some of the players at the time had trouble with, if I remember correctly. That not everybody's player, it had some trouble with. I maybe that's apocryphal, but it was certainly, it showed, hey, these DVD menus and the special features, this format is better. It's more than just a sharper picture and everything in widescreen and good sound, right? It's a different way to organize and present information.
And it was kind of the poster child for the format. It was. Any demo of a home theater or a DVD player or whatever, they were demoing it with The Matrix. There was no question.
Absolutely, the shootout scene in the Federal building or whatever building it was, with the freeing Morpheus. That was a surround sound demo. Everybody was using that to see if the rear channels were working, and they were getting surround effects, and you could hear the bullets whizzing by you. And then the water when Morpheus is breaking out of the the thing and the water's gushing around. You could hear the water coming in. There was a lot of. I mean, I have tested a lot of surround sound systems to those scenes. So absolutely, everybody was using it as a reference.
Yeah, and if you worked at Best Buy in 1999 and 2000, I wonder how many times you've seen that sequence.
Yeah, I can only imagine. In the first bullet time sequence, in the sequence where the agents are moving around real fast, I'm sure you saw all those. Rewind that. I want to hear that again. Yeah, I that was a fun time, and it was neat to go and to listen to the surround sound speakers at Best Buy or Circuit City. Definitely the speaker room at Circuit City. And any speaker that I bought, I probably was listening to parts of The Matrix, even before I bought it, when I was demoing it at the store. So definitely, that was great in the theaters, but a huge deal at home. I'm trying to remember if I had a VHS copy of The Matrix. I probably didn't.
I did not. I was firmly into DVD at that point, and it was, I mean, I bought it first moment I could and watched it constantly. And it was one of those situations where, like, I knew so many people who that was the moment that they adopted DVD, was when The Matrix came out. And it was like, oh, well, I can get The Matrix on DVD. Yeah, here we go. I'm buying the DVD player. I'm hooking everything up. I'm getting The Matrix on DVD. So it was really put its fingerprints on the world in so many different ways. And part of it is time and place, right? I mean, like, I don't think you can move the needle that much without a little bit of luck. But also so much of it is the story of it, the intelligence of it, what it has to say. Yeah. So I would love to, at this point, shift the conversation from like those experiences that we had or what we remember, and talk about, like, what do you get out of the first Matrix? What is it? What do you learn? What does it teach you? Like, those kinds of things.
Well, I mean, there is a lot of exposition in The Matrix. One of the things I was struck by going back and rewatching it for this was, man, there's a lot of scenes of just talking where they're giving you a lot of information, and they do some showing, but they also just do a lot of telling, right? Especially you think of the long Morpheus monologues, there's a lot there. So one thing I learned was, you can have a totally brand new universe, IP, lore story, whatever you want to call it, and in 2 hours and 15 minutes or however long it was, you can fit a lot in. It doesn't have to. It doesn't need 3 or 4 movies to tell that story of the Matrix. They used their time pretty economically. Now, a lot of exposition, a lot of talky scenes. They were well acted, and they were, particularly Lawrence Fishburne's Morpheus was so interesting to listen to, the way he phrased things and his tone and his tempo, that I felt like it was okay. Like, I was listening to a really interesting professor in Morpheus teach me about the Matrix. And it was the question, what is the Matrix? That was being answered by the film, right? It wasn't just a clever marketing tagline. It was, but it was also the point of the entire movie too. So I can, it captured people's imagination. I think it was a little bit. It's kind of a downer of a film for 80% of it, in that the world's a pretty awful place, and humans are so bad that when they're given a perfect world, that they can't deal with that. They need a crap world. And by the way, you're in a big balloon full of goo, and you're powering machines. It sounds. It's pretty awful, and also kind of makes your skin crawl when you think about it. But it is kind of it's down on people. It's not up on people or up with people. It's kind of down on humanity, in that it's like, well, yeah, you guys are so awful. We couldn't give you. You can't have nice things, so you got to live in this crap reality. That and that's sort of. I think that's the Wachowskis bring something very gritty and real. And if it had felt fake, like, or if it had been a little Pollyannish. I don't know. A little bit too much polish, or it presented an unrealistic view of humans. I don't think it would have been nearly as effective. I don't know. It's grittiness. It's darkness. I think it served it well. It was emo, maybe the emo film.
I think you're talking a lot about tone, which it does do very, very well. It knows what it wants to say. It says it. It trusts the audience, which I think is one of its strengths. And I don't think enough writers or storytellers or, of whatever type you want to talk about, I don't think enough of them trust their audience. Like there's this need to just, spoon feed you all of the information that you need. And you're right. The Matrix is a very exposition heavy film, but it's never dumbing it down, right? It's never like, oh, well, let me explain what Morpheus just told you. It's never doing that. All of its exposition is building on it. It's giving the audience more and more and more. And does that demand repeat viewings? Yeah, you could make a very strong argument that it does. But it's rewarding that way, right? And it's very smart in the way it delivers all of that exposition by setting up that universe that you talked about. And it makes those questions. And I'm sorry I keep comparing it to the first Star Wars movie, but I think the first Star Wars is one of the best examples of universe building. And my favorite example of it is the throwaway line that Obi-Wan Kenobi says, where he's just like, oh, your father fought in the Clone Wars, and that's it. And we hit that beat and then we're off, and we never talk about the Clone Wars again until 2023 or 2000.
But we thought about it. It captured our imagination.
And it's that element that is missing from so many films, and The Matrix does it extraordinarily well.
I totally agree.
It makes you excited to be in that world. It makes you excited to re-experience that movie. And then ultimately, we got sequels, and it made me excited to go to the theater for those sequels.
I would say that The Matrix is a little bit more heavy-handed in that than that elegant throwaway line about the Clone Wars and other things in Star Wars that kind of hint at that an old religion, and
yes.
The Death Star officers talking to Vader, kind of talking to those little things. Pretty subtle and great. I think the Matrix is a little bit more. I don't want to say ham-fisted. That wouldn't really be fair, but it's more on the nose, I think you could say.
I think that's fair.
They had a lot to show you in a couple hours, and they also wanted to do some cool slow motion kung fu and bullet time and those sorts of things. So they had to fit in a lot of things. So subtlety was not part of the equation. The white rabbit, right? That's not subtle. That's really on the nose. You want to follow me? So I think that. But that's fine, right? It needed that. I think it needed that. It had to explode out of the gate and really show everybody what it was. It was a big risk, and I think that if it didn't swing for the fences like that, it would not have connected with so many people, and we wouldn't have had multiple sequels in a whole universe.
I think that one of the things that you mentioned was this idea that it's really down on humanity. And I see where you're drawing that conclusion. I'm not sure that you could say overall that the story is down on humanity, because I think there is a huge element to it of people discovering like the power within themselves and the potential within themselves, and so I think that part of the heaviness of the film, where you're in the battery pod and you're covered in goo, and the agents are saying that you're the disease and you had this perfect world but you couldn't handle it because you're so awful. I think that's creating a juxtaposition with Neo and with Morpheus and with all the people eventually in Zion that you see in the sequels.
Yeah.
I think all of that is helping to build this idea that no, humanity can actually expand. It can actually improve yourself, and I think that's one of the core philosophies and lessons of The Matrix.
I think that it tries to do that more in the sequels, maybe especially in the second one. Maybe it shows a more hopeful vision of humanity than in the first one. But going back to the first one, the villains that were introduced in the agents, and particularly Agent Smith, very memorable and effective villains. Hugo Weaving and his many sets of teeth that he's crammed in his mouth. He's got lots of teeth. Even to a certain extent, the drones in the real world, or the whatever the machines were called, I can't remember them. Maybe they were drones. I don't know. They even were an effective scare, even though you only had those for a few minutes in the tunnel chase scenes. They were effective. And the real world wouldn't always be so effective, I'll say. We could talk about the sequels, but certainly the agents and Smith were really interesting and really scary. And that sort of almost a horror element where they could take over anybody, any citizen, and that it could pop around like that. That made them seem impossible to, not just their ability to dodge bullets and jump from building to building. It made it seem impossible to defeat an undefeatable enemy that could be everywhere watching you. It could show up at any moment. It was actually kind of scary in that way, and more so in this movie than in any of the others. I think that it definitely, let's say, it leaned into some grittier, grimier aspects in the first film that in that second film in particular, it really moved away from. It became more fantastic. I don't know. Are you ready to talk about where the movie went? And I will add one thing. The reason why I was ready for the next films is I felt like it ended with a perfect setup for the next film, picking up the phone, saying, "This is, Neo, we're coming," and then flying off. That was a perfect setup. I was like, oh, there's got to be more. There has, even if they haven't been announced or not confirmed, this movie was made to set up the next film in the series of films. And that got me, that hooked me, that last little bit, that short scene. I was like, oh, what an effective way to end a film. It was a self-contained story, but also not, right? You know what I mean? You don't feel, it didn't end like Lord of the Rings, like, wow, just ending. But you were ready for the next movie. You were ready for the next continuation.
Yeah. And we got the next one in The Matrix Reloaded. I'm perfectly fine to move on and talk about that because I don't think you can ignore the Matrix sequels. And I think they get a bad rap because I think a lot of people are like, oh, it's a good thing they only made one Matrix movie or, whatever. And there's really not a lot of love for any of the sequels, which I struggle to understand. But I don't think you can have a discussion about the Matrix without acknowledging them and without seeing where the Wachowskis took the story. Because I think it's part and parcel. Like you can't, it's not like, I wouldn't want to live in a world without them, right? Like I don't want to ignore Reloaded and Revolutions and Resurrections.
So this is unpopular opinion. Matrix Reloaded is my favorite of the series. I think it is an incredibly well done film. I think that it had a lot of like almost science fiction fantasy elements, werewolves, vampires, the ghosts. I think that, and I think there was a lot of people who were like, oh, the first film, it was more serious and it didn't have all these fantasy elements and science fiction. And I'm like, wait, no, I think that this was the movie that the first film, this was the natural evolution of that. I think that maybe some folks read a little bit too much into the first film and its philosophy and took it a little bit too seriously. And then when the second film was crazy, fantastic, werewolves and vampires, and, biggest set piece car chases you've ever seen, I think people were a little disappointed. But to me, it was like, oh no, that really was what the first film was setting up. I considered it. I felt like it was. What the first film, it was what it was supposed to be. The first film was Gandalf the Grey. The second film was Gandalf the White. It was what the Matrix always was supposed to be. I love Reloaded. I think it's just incredible. I think the Neo as Superman fighting the other super programs and the programs having identities, deleted programs, the Merovingian, all those things, really interesting. Morpheus believing in the prophecy, and putting everything at risk and being at odds with Zion. Now, I think the Zion rave scene was pretty stupid, and I don't like that scene. But the scenes with Neo interacting with people who are bringing stuff and saying, "Look out for people," and treating him like the Buddha almost, right? That was really cool, and it was well done. I think that the second film had as much to say as the first film, but I think it was over the top science fiction-y in a way that was more satisfying. I'll tell a really brief story. I had a friend of mine who, this encapsulates how I feel about The Matrix, even though it's not about The Matrix, who said he went and saw Man of Steel. I said, how did you like Man of Steel? He goes, well, I like the Superman stuff, but all that alien stuff at the beginning I didn't care for. I'm like, Superman's an alien, right? You know that? And he was talking about the Krypton stuff. And I feel like there's almost like I wanted to see the guy flying around the suit. And people kind of felt like The Matrix was all about the philosophy and all that. And I'm like, I think it's woven in there, but I think it's also about a guy who can fly and stop bullets, and he's fighting ghosts. And there's an incredible motorcycle chase on a freeway that's unlike anything you've ever seen before, and a soundtrack that weaves in to the point where you can't hear that music without thinking of the action on the screen, and you can't see the action on the screen without having the music run through your head. I think Reloaded, I think it was an incredibly successful sequel, and it was the high point of the entire franchise.
I also really like Reloaded. I will not say that it is my favorite of the franchise, but I love it. I think it's phenomenal. I liked it from the start, right? And there was this backlash is probably too strong of a word, but there was definitely this cultural excitement for the Matrix sequel is coming out. But then as people were coming out of the theaters, it felt like, oh, well, that wasn't, it wasn't up to par. And I'm going to disagree with you a little bit, and I wonder how you'll react to this. I almost feel like it's the opposite of the way you perceived it, where I feel like the audience at large missed the philosophy in the first Matrix and was going into Reloaded thinking, oh, this is going to be, even more bullet time, even more guns, even more blah, blah, blah. And then when there was so much talking and so much deeper philosophy, that's what turned them off to it.
Interesting. So I think that the most talky element of the film, and probably where a lot of people are like, was at the end with the architect. Mm-hmm. And what is going on here? There's an old guy and he's in a chair. And I always think of the Will Ferrell MTV parody of that, which was hilarious.
Yes.
That I do think that maybe at that point people were like, I don't. This is going in a different direction. This is not going to end in a way that it's got the downer sort of Empire Strikes Back type ending where the good guys are in trouble and the bad guys seem to be winning. And then also when Agent Smith came into the real world, I think that was really stupid, and it set up I think it set up for revolutions, and it was part of the whole. The part of the reason why revolutions failed is they just went in a bad direction with it. But I don't know. I see the second one as having the best action set pieces and a balance between the philosophy, the talkiness, and the action. And I think the talkiness is fine, other than maybe the architect overdid it. Ergo, some of vis-a-vis. I think vis-a-vis. Over the top, old man in a chair.
Ergo.
So yeah, I think that we perceive the film. I think we both appreciate it. We might perceive the film differently.
Yeah, I do agree that car chase, it will probably never be topped as far as action set pieces go. I mean, it is incredible. and the Wachowskis had so much support behind them that they were able to make a movie that could not be replicated, essentially. Like Joel Silver, the producer of The Matrix, is on record as saying that they were unhappy that there were so many bullet time effects after they released The Matrix, because that was revolutionary. Nothing like that had ever been done in film before. And so it was this really special moment, but then everybody started figuring out, oh, this is how we can do that same effect. And then you started seeing it in like Scary Movie and like, you know, that sort of thing. From all the reports, that really upset the Wachowskis and Joel Silver. So the idea for going into Reloaded was, we are going to go so far that nobody can replicate this. And I think that the highway chase scene is a huge example of success. And I think the Burly Brawl, I'm not even sure they could achieve it. And like from a story element, I have no problem with it. I think it's fine. But they were pushing computer generated effects a little further, and I think they pushed them to the point of breaking a little bit in that sequence in the film. I forgive them. I mean, it was very early on, but I do think their ambition was maybe a little bit beyond the tools that they had. But it does not affect my enjoyment of Reloaded. And I'll even go as far as to say I love the architect sequence. I think it's really super interesting. And I think, and maybe we'll talk about this a little bit more when we get to Revolutions, but I think part of what The Matrix struggled with is, especially in the West, we look at everything, whether you're Christian or not, we look at everything through a Judeo-Christian lens of mythology. And I do not think at any point the Wachowskis were interested in chasing that. And so I think everybody who was watching this movie in 99, 2002, 3, in that era, I think everybody was trying to turn Neo into a Christ figure. And he's not. I mean, there are elements there, and the Wachowskis are kind of saying, we're not talking about religion, we're talking about philosophy, and they're bringing that to the table. And I wonder, I've never heard anyone like vocalize this idea, but I wonder if a lot of people's kind of visceral reaction against The Matrix Reloaded was, oh, this story is not going in the direction we expected the story to go, just because, of the thousands of years of having that kind of story arc.
That is I've never actually thought about the philosophy angle and sort of more of an Eastern sort of cycle of rebirth. I didn't really think about that, but I think you're absolutely right. I do think there was some expectations that were subverted with finding out that Neo was one of many the ones, and that Zion had fallen and been rebuilt multiple times. I do think that was a moment where a lot of people are like, wait, what's going on here? Everything we've been told is a lie up to this point. Morpheus, who was right, and the Oracle, who we thought was being an honest broker with the other characters and with the audience. Maybe not. Morpheus has been misled. How is he going to take that? I think it was pretty jarring. And then to have also at the same time Smith in the real world, and then Neo being able to affect things in the real world with the machines. I think that it went off the rails with people because it did subvert that. And I don't know. I think that 3/4 of Reloaded is awesome, and I do think that it goes in a bad direction towards the end, and it sets up Revolutions to go in a very disappointing direction.
Tell me more about that. Why do you feel Revolutions is a disappointing direction?
I don't think that it had anywhere to. I think that it kind of came down to Smith and Neo punching each other with super strength for the last 45 minutes of the movie, and I don't think it really. I think it kind of drove itself into a ditch and didn't know how to get out, and so we're just going to punch each other. And then when you don't have Neo around, when you have Neo around, the stakes. He can take care of anything with a wave of his hand. When you don't have Neo around, Morpheus and Trinity and the protector of whose character I forgot, of the Oracle. They're just getting the floor wiped with them every time they go into the nightclub, and maybe not, but they don't seem to be as capable. And they had survived without Neo for many years, so kind of felt like maybe they had. I don't know, like they were using him as a crutch, and they were. I don't know. I think that having them without Neo, they should have still been able to tell an interesting story. And that club scene with the Merovingian at the beginning of Revolution is just, for some reason, just really boring and disinteresting. And they're walking on the ceilings. That should be cool, but it was like, oh, there's a new gimmick. It's not really interesting, and it doesn't really make sense. What does this mean in the broader terms of, everything had represented something, deleted programs. I don't know. And then Neo being stuck in between life and death. It's like and then being blinded. It went in a very strange direction, and they had nothing to do but punch each other to death, and then Neo dying. Or we think, right? And Trinity. I don't know. It's like they didn't know what to do with it. And then they had a 45-minute CGI cartoon battle with people in mech suits. Looked like the load lifter from Aliens that Ripley was wearing. It just didn't have anything interesting to say or to show us. It's like they spent all of their creative energy on Reloaded. And when it came to Revolution, they didn't know what to do.
Yeah. You're not wrong. I don't mind the film. I like that club scene at the beginning. I did not find that boring. I was fine with that. I also don't mind the punching at the end. The mech suit stuff, I completely agree. Like that doesn't do anything for me. The whole Zion battle, and unfortunately, it just devolves into a light show. I mean, like there are no stakes, there's no drama. It's really not that interesting, and it was a shame that that's where Morpheus was relegated to for the vast majority of that film. The stuff with Neo and Trinity I found pretty fascinating, and I was on board with that. And it was interesting, and like the blinding thing, but still he's able to see. I think that there are some parallels with maybe some of the deeper messages and stories that the Matrix is trying to deliver to us. Also a lot of it is borrowed from Eastern philosophy, like you pointed that out. And then a lot of it is borrowed from like anime in Eastern entertainment. And it really wears that influence. And even though all the Matrix was influenced heavily by anime, I mean, Revolutions was basically a Dragon Ball Z episode. I mean, they did not shy away from their inspiration there, which, it's fine. It would be disingenuous for me to say that when I saw Revolutions, I wasn't disappointed. But as I have grown, my appreciation of it has grown. And now I can look at the Matrix trilogy and then eventually the Matrix series, which we'll get to in a minute. I can look at the whole thing very positively, and I can say, overarchingly, I like these movies and they mean a lot to me. And I like that it's a story that you can apply to a lot of different things in life. And that's I'm a sucker for that, right? So like you can say, oh, well, I had this experience in my life that I had to overcome. And, I feel like I'm Neo in the Matrix. And I think that the Matrix can be applied to so many different things like that. And I love to see people doing that. So I think there's a lot of value in that. And I'm grateful that it kind of has that universal appeal, in that it's not trying to just say, I am one philosophy or I am one idea, but instead it's kind of this broad blank canvas in a way that we can use these tools and these colors to paint our own picture. I really like that. But Revolutions is not a perfect movie by far. And that petering out idea that you've shared, I can see that. I'd love to have a conversation with the Wachowskis and be like, okay, what am I missing? Or are we right? Were you just tired at the end of this movie?
Especially filming them back to back, right?
Yeah.
They seem so different. Yeah. Like there's a sense of exhaustion at some point in the second film, or the third film. It's like, where where was this going? Did you have another direction that you couldn't take it for some reason? Doors got closed, budget wise or story wise or something. It would be interesting to hear what they have to say about that, because I would like to know, because it feels very different than the second film. And I know that there was like a huge helicopter stunt scene that got cut out of the film, that because Keanu Reeves talked about, it's the biggest action stunt scene ever filmed, and it didn't even make it into the third film. And I don't know if it didn't get all the way filmed, or it just didn't work with the story. And I don't know, like, where would it have fit? Where would have Neo's character been on a helicopter? I don't know if you've heard that story.
I haven't actually.
There's no deleted scenes of it anywhere, but you can, if you Google it, you can see that talked about it before the film came out and it never was seen or heard of. So, I don't know if something big happened or if they just didn't have the full picture. I would love to ask them about that and hear what they have to say. Probably a fascinating story. There's probably a making of the Matrix documentary about the original trilogy that would be really, and Resurrections that would be really interesting to hear.
I'd watch that in a heartbeat. Yeah, but I don't know. The Wachowskis are very interesting thinkers, in my opinion, and even the work they've done post Matrix, which that's not for this episode, but I really like a lot of it. And I would not even say The Matrix is their most creative or impressive movie for me. But I don't know what.
What would you say is? You can say Speed Racer.
It is. It's Speed Racer. Right. It is one of the most pure imagination movies I've ever seen in my life. I mean, that movie floors me. And for a long time, I thought, I must be just remembering it with rose-colored glasses. But I revisited it recently. Finally had the courage to do so. And still, it's not a perfect movie. The monkey stuff bugs me to no end. But the rest of that movie, oh my goodness, that movie is brilliant. And I'd love to do an episode on it sometime.
Here's where maybe we should, because I have watched clips of it. I've never watched the whole thing. So
really,
maybe we should explore Speed Racer.
You should have, you should definitely watch Speed Racer, and then we'll talk about it. Because I will defend that movie to my grave. But anyway, back to the Matrix. Yeah, it would be very interesting to hear what they have to say about it. I don't get the impression they're really that interested in talking about it. They seem kind of like the let the work speak for themselves kind of people. I think that rightfully so, in a lot of ways, they feel like, well, we've done that in the past and we've got other things to do in the future. Now, that does not account for Matrix Resurrection, which was far in the future. What is it? 22-year gap between something like that?
Yeah.
What did you think of Matrix Resurrection?
Oh, so I had to go back and rewatch it for this episode because I had watched it. I watched it when it first came out. I remember I was really, really sick, and I was like having to, stop every 15 or 20 minutes and throw up. Here's a little bit about me. I don't like to throw up inside the house. So in the winter, I would go. I will throw up outside. I'm really weird about that. So, but I remember stopping every 15, 20 minutes, going out, dry heaving at some point. I was super sick, and I was recovering from a neck surgery too. So it was every time I would throw up, it would be like I would pass out in pain almost. I didn't remember anything about the movie other than I did not like it. So I had to go back and rewatch it. It is a total mess. It repeats beats. It like does weird things like, I'm going to bring back Morpheus, but he's not going to be Morpheus, but he is. But he's part Morpheus and part Agent Smith, but I'm not going to, that doesn't really matter because he's all Morpheus. And it doesn't make any sense at all. But this guy looks kind of like a young Lawrence Fishburne. Actually, the actor doing that, I can't remember his name, but he's been in other things. Mateen, I can't remember. Yal Abdullah Mateen, maybe. Anyways, he does a great job with what he has to do, but everything about the film is so poorly conceived. The Neo Trinity stuff, that they're better together, but they got to keep them. Isn't that what the movie Hancock was about? When Will Smith couldn't be near Charlize Theron, if they got too close, they were too powerful. If they got too far away, they would get. I honestly, I think that Neil Patrick Harris is the analyst. He was a cliche machine. He's not a. He's a funny guy, but he's not a serious actor, and I can't take his role seriously. And I don't think that one was supposed to be taken seriously. Talking about the machines as the suits, and then there was a moment was self-referential, right? Like, what is the Matrix? It's bullet time. Like, okay, that's a cool little nod. But then when you spend 15 minutes doing that, and you realize that that's the whole movie is self-aware, self-referential, it was like, guys, you need it. Well, it was just one of the Wachowskis. It was Lily, I think, that that had done that. Need to come up with something better. It did not work at any level. And then the action scenes, which were mostly Keanu Reeves, like doing a force push, really, really cheesy. It looks like they just did not have ideas to bring it up a level. I didn't understand it. Smith was on their side, then was against them, and then helped them, and then was against them again. What was his motivations? What was anybody's motivations? It was a mess. It was a car crash. It made no sense.
All right. Well, I am going to be kinder to the film than you are, but with a couple of caveats. And the first caveat is I am a sucker for metafiction. So the self-referential stuff, they had me at go. And I was like, ooh, this is interesting. Like, tell me more about this. So that's caveat number one. Caveat number two, I'm also a sucker for stories that leap very far in their timeline. And so the fact that we're picking this up so far after Matrix Revolutions, again, that just piqued a particular part in my brain where I'm like, okay, wow. And so at that point, I'm ready for things to be wildly different. And that's exciting to me. It's like, okay, let's see how things have changed in, 50, 100 years, whatever it was. So those two things made me really on board for this film when it started, because you're hit with those two things like very quickly in the beginning. I will say that as an idea, and the idea of an artist going back 20 plus years later and living with the art they created and how that has shaped the world and how the world has responded to that is fascinating. And I applaud. Was it Lily or Lana? I don't remember which Wachowski it was.
I don't remember which one came back.
Yeah, but I applaud them
one
for
didn't.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And the one that came back, I applaud them for having the courage to examine that, because who gets the chance to examine that? I mean, there are very few people, probably only a handful of people in the world who could examine something like that, and then all of them have been like, nah, I'm not interested. But no, Wachowski was interested, and I applaud them for that. Where I think it fails, and where I think it fails is too strong, where I think it stumbles a bit is in its execution. And I'll give you two prime examples of what I mean by that. The first one is what you cited, the Morpheus issue. The fact that it's not Lawrence Fishburne is a crime. And what they needed to do was they needed to cast Lawrence Fishburne, and in the scene in Zion where where Morpheus is explaining that he is now an AI program that is Morpheus in the real, and he's going through all this. All that I needed to make me love this film was for Lawrence Fishburne to be the one saying it, and him to lean down and deliver the line, "Do you think that's air I'm breathing now?"
Yeah,
home run. That would have been amazing. And it would have said so much, and it would have called so much back. And the fact that me living here in Missouri can see that, and Wachowski making this film in Los Angeles couldn't, that frustrates me. The second place that I think they made a huge mistake was in not casting Hugo Weaving as Smith. And I know the reason they did this is they wanted the Smith reveal to be a big deal. It wasn't. It didn't matter.
Right.
And it would have made...
You knew where it was going.
Exactly.
Yes.
And it would have made the movie come together a lot more if you saw the face and you're like, oh, I know who this is. And now let me understand, what's going on with this character. So and Lawrence Fishburne has said he never got a phone call to reprise the role of Matrix. I don't know what they were thinking in that. Hugo Weaving, I mean, like sometimes he's unavailable. He's, got a career and family and all that kind of stuff. So I could maybe forgive that one more than I could forgive Lawrence Fishburne. But the fact that they never even called the man, wow, I don't understand that. So Resurrections is very interesting to me. I like the film for the most part. It's got some pretty big stumbles. I love the fact that it was the first piece of fiction that is AI positive. And that was really refreshing to me.
Interesting. You're right.
Yeah. And so like, I liked that idea because the only thing we hear in the media is AI is going to take our jobs and it's terrible and it's ruining the world. So I liked the fact that they were saying, you know what? I mean, let's present the other side of the story. And especially for something as heralded as the Matrix to come up and say, you know what? It's going to be okay. Human and AI, they're living together. They're doing all right. I found that really fascinating. I appreciated that a lot. I just would have loved to have been like, hey, Chris, why don't you give this screenplay a pass? We're thinking about casting this other guy as Morpheus, and just let me solve that problem for them, put my line in there, and then I would have loved the film. As it is, I like it better than Revolutions. I would say that for me, it's The Matrix, it's Reloaded, it's Resurrections, and then it's Revolutions.
All right, so I would definitely put Reloaded and then The Matrix, and then Revolutions and Resurrection at the very, very end. I brought up Tron earlier, and I'm going to come back to it because there are some parallels between Tron Legacy in 2010, which was the second Tron movie, and Resurrections. I mean, like the software, the creator of the Matrix or the creator of the MCP, whatever the Tron world is. I don't
Master
know.
Control Program.
Master Control Program, right? Like him being a game developer and living inside of his game, and there being identity issues, and there's a lot of similarities there. If you go back and if you watch them back to back, which I did, like, oh, there's some similarities here. So, and I realized that the Matrix was inspired in part by Tron. And maybe Tron is AI positive too. Another movie that is AI positive is the movie AI by Steven Spielberg. And it is.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah. But at any rate, I did find that I just felt like that out of ideas, it was also too late, right? It was way too late. The cultural importance of The Matrix had come and gone. Keanu Reeves had now, we talked about this in a previous episode, Keanu Reeves was now attached to another franchise that he was more well known for than Neo, somehow, right, with John Wick. And so it was way too little, way too late. And maybe if they got the timing right, they could have come up with something weak and it still would have been better received. Or if the timing was going to be this wrong, it needed to be super strong to pull people back into the orbit of the Matrix, and they missed on both counts. So I would have probably not brought it back at this point, just because I don't know if anybody cared. I also think it kind of ruined any hope we might have had for like a continuation of the universe post Neo. I don't know, and also remasters of some of those great Matrix video games that we had on the 7th generation, Enter the Matrix and Path of Neo, which are great games, and I would love to see them redone for modern systems, particularly Path of Neo. That's a great game. And I felt like it killed whatever momentum or interest that Matrix could have had if it brought back in the right way to bring it back in this way. One more thing I'll say about all these R's.
I know.
Resurrections. The character of Naomi being brought back, what an unlikable character in the original trilogy or the original series, and then to bring her back and to somehow make her less likable and more wrong in a really poor role in the film, I would not have brought her back. I would have brought back Morpheus or someone that you like, or someone that was, or don't bring anybody back. Give us a new character that somehow connects to the old Zion. Just an ill-advised move to bring her back.
I want to talk Tron one more second.
Sure, yeah.
This is not the Tron episode, but
no, but there's a connection here.
There is, and I do not like Tron Legacy. I don't think it's a good film. I've given it several chances, and I just can't get there. I have not seen Tron Ares. I have no interest in seeing Tron Ares.
I'll probably watch it now just because of this. A sense to complete it.
The first Tron movie, though, is a gem. I love that movie. I think it holds up incredibly well. I think visually it holds up, but I think the intelligence behind it and the story is super strong. And there's one little line in that movie that I think brings the whole thing into focus for me, and that is, do you believe in the users? And I love that line in the original Tron movie because it frames life in a computer in this religious context.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. And they don't even really explore it in that much detail in the first Tron movie. But the fact that that line's in there, I think that is kind of the binding DNA between Tron and the Matrix, is that idea of, in this artificial reality, we still find humanity. And to me, like, that is my takeaway from the Matrix. I love that it is, despite all of its grime and its grittiness, it is an uplifting human story. And it's saying that, hey, we have more to contribute than just the power, the electricity that our bodies generate. And I'm a sucker for that kind of thing, right? Like I like to think that maybe there's something that I contribute or something that the people on the planet can contribute to improving. And I like stories that support that idea. So for me, that is my takeaway from The Matrix, is, for all of its flaws, and there are many, it is a compelling story of a very human thought presented in this technologically heavy world.
I think there's certainly less flaws in the first two films than there are in the last two. I think that I'm with Joe. I think it's Joe Pantoliano's character, Cypher, from the first film. It's Cypher, right?
Yes.
Plug me back into the machine. I don't want to remember any of this. If I would not want to be. I would not want my mind freed. I would want to be back in the machines, in the goo bubble, and not be aware of it.
I would want to be freed. I want to be with the dirty people in Zion, because I know that that's real. Like that would matter.
Smells bad. You know
sure
that place smells bad.
Yeah, it does.
I will take the digital prime rib, which are just electrical impulses telling my mind that it's tasting prime rib. But if you don't know, you're no worse off for it. I definitely. I think that it does that. Would you rather live like sort of a fake but comfortable life, or a real but hard life? Like, I guess I'll take the fake but comfortable. And I don't mean that like I want fake things, but I don't want to live the hard life and eat the oatmeal goo baby food thing or whatever, that the protein slurry. I do think that it does give you that question, and you I know what you're thinking right now. You should have taken the blue pill, right? I think that's another Pantolano. He had some great lines from the first film.
Did. Yeah, absolutely.
And I do think that two different types of people, right? There's the Morpheus and there's the Cypher, and I'm probably a Cypher. I wouldn't sell out my friends,
I'm glad
but
to
I
hear
would
that.
be asked to be plugged back in.
Listeners, which pill do you want to take? Would you take the red pill or the blue pill?
And would you have brought back Resurrections? Would you have gone and did the fourth film, because I would have not. I think that the series was better off without that having ended and maybe getting picked up in a post Neo way. I think they unfortunately killed it dead with that movie.
Well, there's a fifth one in production. I don't know if you knew that.
No, there's not.
There is. The Wachowskis are not helming it. The whichever one came back for Resurrections is like executive producing, but
Okay.
it's kind of like New Blood kind of a thing.
All right. Well, I did not know that. This is kind of like us doing an entire episode about the console wars being over and then the Steam Deck being announced in the interim between releasing
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Oh boy, I'm embarrassed.
It's okay. I don't think it's officially greenlit, but they're trying to get it off the
Okay,
ground.
all right.
So
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, I learned lots of things, and I learned I'm probably going to go watch the new Tron movie, whether I want to or not, just because now I'm compelled. Chris, why don't you tell them where they can find other episodes if they want to learn other things about non-Matrix related movies, TV, books, video games?
absolutely. You can learn a lot by going to 2middleagedguys.com. That is 2, the numeral 2, middleagedguys.com. From there, you can find us on our socials. You can find our RSS feed for the podcast. You can find links to Audible, Spotify, Apple, all of these great podcast delivery mechanisms. You can email us, which we would love to have you do. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the Matrix or our analysis of the Matrix or anything else that you want to talk about. You want to talk about your 401k? Send us an email. We'll be happy to talk about your 401k. Reach out to us. Call us. We're lonely. We'd like to hear from you.